just introduce yourselves and stuff. You okay with that?
All right, well, welcome everybody. We're glad you could be here tonight. Brave the snowy Michigan weather and come on out. So glad you could make it. We're excited to be here once again and talking about cancer tonight and how things are connected and how we can figure out why and how we're getting it and avoid that and be able to put our bodies into a situation to be able to heal from that. So my name is Jeff Finley, for anybody that doesn't know me. My partner in crime here, Jeff Kamke. Become very good friends over the last couple of years and started doing these meetings a little over a year ago. I guess probably going to be going on a year and a half here relatively soon, but we've found a very good common connection in wanting to help people with their health and well-being, and it's a very common thread among us. And the more we've grown individually in our pursuit of that, the more we find that we're growing together and wanting to help people in that realm. So that's what we're here for. So today is called Everything's Connected, Making Sense of Cancer. And we'll just kind of dive right in here. So looking at a couple of things, if we take a look at cancer, one of the things that's pretty well known, I guess, is if we look back into the 70s, there was a war on cancer, quote unquote, that was declared here in the United States because it was becoming such an epidemic. It was actually in 1971. It was declared a war on cancer. And I don't recall the exact amount of funding, and I didn't write it down, but there was an amount of funding that was basically guaranteed from the government at that point to be administered into the healthcare field to come up with a cure for cancer. What we're looking at this point is, since that time, we've spent $200 billion on cancer research and treatment. So mostly research. In that time frame, if we look at the 5-year survival rate, it's gone from 50% to 65%. With $200 billion, the 5-year survival rate has only increased 15%. Wow. Now that's not looking at people 6 years and beyond. That's only looking at a 5-year survival rate, because that's how the cancer and medical industry deems whether you survive your cancer or not, is whether you live for 5 years after you got treated or not. Many people don't know that. So one of the things that we want to look at is back when science really got involved for the most part into the cancer realm and healthcare in general was in the 40s and 50s, when pharmaceuticals kind of became the new exciting technology in the medical field. And so when we look at that 1940s and 50s, if we think about other technologies, if you will, that have been developed since then and into what we're looking at today, from computers back in the 70s that used to take up, like a room half the size, that was a personal computer, if you will, to today, we've got a laptop in front of us that's video recording us on a microphone, about the size of my thumbnail. And we look at phones, we used to have the dial rotary phones, and evolved into the car phones, that had the huge consoles, to now we've got, little iPods and stuff that are teeny tiny, we can fit in our pocket, or, just look at the evolution, I guess my point is, in technologies that we've had even in the past 10 to 15 years. And then we think about the medical industry, we're still working with, obviously we've come up with new drugs to treat things, and we're doing a great job of managing the symptoms, but we're still using that same technology in the pharmaceuticals that was developed half a century ago. And again, so taking a look at where we've come in the last 40, 50 years from the quote-unquote war on cancer, $200 billion spent on research, What, you can come up with your own conclusion. What I would say is a mediocre result in a 5-year survival rate increase of 15%. It just doesn't seem like we're getting the job done real well, right? So bringing that into today now, if we look at 2012, the estimates for 2012, and I don't know if there's any completed numbers at this point, 'cause you really don't find out about those things for time after, but there was an estimated 565,650 people that would die in 2012 from cancer. So a little over 500,000 in a year. And to put that in perspective, if you guys were all old enough, if you think back to September 11th, 2001, remember the horror that everybody experienced in their guts that morning as they turned on their TVs and saw the news reports, because a lot of people had just gotten killed from a few plane crashes. I mean, obviously there's more to the story than that, right? But think about the feelings that we experienced, the loss of life that was incurred that morning. That was one morning with a couple planes. And we still, I mean, as I talk about that, I can see expressions on faces changing in the room because of that feeling. Well, if we equate that to what's going on in the realm of cancer, there are 1,550 people dying every day. That would be the equivalent of 3 747 jets crashing and killing every passenger on board every day of every year.
Say that again?
1,550 people every day dying of cancer. The equivalent of 3 747 jets full of people crashing and killing everyone on board every day of every year. So when we put it in that perspective, September 11th, was made out to be such a tragedy, but there's a much bigger tragedy that's taking place every day in the realm of cancer, and yet we don't, I guess, hear it enough, or it doesn't get put into perspective that way, that it's a much larger situation than that. So from the American Cancer Society, we've got the website here in case anybody wants it later to reference, but the estimates are that over our lifetime, 1 out of 3 females will get cancer, and 1 out of 2 males will get cancer. So we got a couple males in the room, we got a few females. Basically, if you turn to the person on your right, turn to the person on your left, one of you is going to have cancer in your lifetime. That's their prediction. Now, I'm not going to speak that into existence. I'm not going to claim that. I'm not going to speak that into existence. That's why we're here tonight, is because we don't believe that has to be the case.
Right.
And we're talking about why we can, why that does happen and what we can do to opt out of that, if you will. So if we look at most of the conventional medical organizations, nonprofits, won't name names, but most all of them are in a situation where they are seeking funding for quote-unquote research. And we've already looked at what 200 billion in research has done over the last 40 years. And what the research is supposed to guarantee at some point, if we keep giving them money, is a quote-unquote cure, right? We're going to someday see the cure for cancer if we keep giving hundreds of billions of dollars to the industry. So we thought, and we did this at our talk on cancer about a year ago, we thought we would look up in Webster's and see what the definition of a cure is. And per Webster's dictionary, cure is to relieve the symptoms of a disease or condition.
Symptoms.
There you go. Aha. I don't think we want to spend billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars to find a drug, pardon me, that the best job it's going to do is mask the symptoms of something, right? We want to figure out what the root cause is and take care of that so we can be restored to health. So then we looked up and said, well, we thought we'd see what the definition of healing is. And healing is to make healthy, whole, or sound, to restore to health, and to free from ailment. So we're going to focus tonight not on a cure, But figuring out why cancer manifests, what we can do to change that, and if it does manifest, how to put your body in a position to be able to heal. Because if you think about your car, if the oil light comes on saying that your oil is low, well, that would be the symptom, right? The oil light coming on.
Right.
So you could just unplug the fuse or something that causes the light to come on, and then you wouldn't have the symptom anymore. But does that change the fact that you're low on oil?
That's a good point.
No, you still need to get your oil filled. That's the root cause. That's the issue. So we need to address the issue, because the body, we all believe that that God designed our bodies to be able to heal. That's why He gave us an immune system that He did. He gave our the bodies to be able to do things. I mean, I work in the paper industry right now. I work with paper every day. I get paper cuts left and right on a daily basis all over my hands. And you know what? I don't have to think about it. They heal. The body's designed to do that. So, in dealing with cancer, one of the things actually is that a lot of people don't know, cancer can actually be the correct response from the body, because the body is put into a spot of exhaustion. The body is put into a place where it has a couple of options. It can continue down this road and die, or it can develop a disease that makes the body work harder and causes issues, but it keeps you alive and puts you kind of into survival mode. And that's what cancer is. So cancer, if you looked at it that way, can actually be a good thing. It can be kind of like that oil light coming on saying, hey, you got something you need to take care of. So we want to look at it that way. And the one cause really that we believe to all disease is exhaustion.
Really?
And it may not be necessarily the exhaustion that you think that comes to mind when I say that, like, you know, you're tired, you want to go to sleep kind of exhaustion. But your body is exhausted. Your systems in your body are exhausted. And we've talked in several different previous meetups about 4 causes of disease, being nutritional deficiencies, toxins, electromagnetic frequencies and radiation, and mental and emotional stress.
Can you say that again? So
We
these
sure
are-
can. And we're going to dive more into those here in a few minutes. But
Okay. What-
nutritional deficiencies,
Nutritional, okay,
toxins,
okay.
electromagnetic frequencies or radiation,
Radiation from the phone.
phones, laptops, wireless signals, yeah, all sorts of good stuff from the technology that we do have today. And then mental and emotional stress. And so the sum of those 4 issues is putting the body systems into exhaustion. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that tonight, and why that leads to the body being in dis-ease, not being able to function in the capacity that it's meant to. So the first thing is exhaustion. Pardon me here for a moment, but the first thing is nutritional deficiencies. And many people aren't aware of this, but there was actually a Nobel Prize-winning gentleman back in the 1930s named Otto Warburg, who made the discovery that cancer and disease in general essentially cannot survive in an alkaline and oxygen-rich environment. And essentially what we described as a body not in an exhausted state. So one of the things that we want to look at is, okay, how do we put our body into an alkaline and oxygen-rich state, or how do we not, how do we do the opposite of that and put our body into the state when cancer is going to be manifested? So I'm going to take a drink because my throat is dry and I'm thirsty, but perfect timing, because what I'm drinking here is a drink of greens. Not promoting any one company or anything. There's tons of them out there. You can buy greens powders, mix it with water or almond milk or fruit juices or whatever, but greens, one of the main functions of greens is to alkalize the body.
How do you spell alkalize?
A-L-K-A.
Oh, K-A-L-I-Z-E.
L-I-Z-E, yep.
Okay, alkalize, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna look that
So for the most part, and there's a lot of resources, one of the things we always suggest is that we can't dive as deeply into any one of these things on any given night as we'd like to. We've done individual meetings on nutrition, on toxins, on all these things. So we're just kind of an overview, but take the time after you leave here in the weeks, months ahead to do the research on your own for these things. But there's things you can find on the internet, use Google or whatever, to find what foods are alkalizing, what are acidifying. You can find that relatively easily. If not, approach either one of us afterwards. We've got resources that we can point you to, free or paid, either way. But to generalize it, most fruits and vegetables specifically, are things that will alkalize your body.
Okay, vegetables especially.
Vegetables especially, more greens the better.
Okay.
And generally speaking, meats and grains are the things that put you into an acidic state.
Does
Now,
that include wheat?
yes.
Really?
Now there's exceptions to both of those. There's fruits that acidify, and there's grains that actually alkalize. So you have to kind of do your research on that. But as a general rule, meats and grains acidify, fruits and vegetables alkalize. So something that you want to pay attention to. And then just in general, again, for nutrition, you want to eat things that are as close to what nature intended as possible. As close to the way that God made it as possible. So the more processed it becomes, the more chemicals get added into the mixture, preservatives, etc. Probably the less good for you that it is, and the more likely it is to, through any of those four things that we talked about, the more likely it is to put your body in an exhaustive state. So one example of that, in our law of attraction meetings and talking about that, we talk a lot about energy and frequencies and how those are intertwined into everything that we do, our thoughts and our words and everything. Well, that actually applies to food too, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, but the food that you eat, the things that you drink have an energy level within them. And the energy level, if you're to measure the energy level of a dead person or dead cell or whatever, the energy of death is 25 megahertz. The energy of a McDonald's hamburger is 5 megahertz.
Yikes.
It's actually lower than death. So,
Let's go get one.
when you get
Yummy.
preservatives, chemicals, etc. involved, it's not a good thing for your body. So you want to eat as close to what nature intended as possible. Now, if you make essentially that same burger, but use, figure out a way to get the alkalizing grains to make your bun with, and eat some organic, free-range buffalo or beef or something. Put on some vegetables and lettuce, tomatoes, etc. You're having essentially the same thing, but it's in a totally different ballpark.
So free range cattle that are,
Yeah, free range, organic. If you're, when and if you're going to eat meat, that's the way to go. Go about it.
You need 25 every day, right?
What's that?
The 25
Megahertz.
megahertz like every day. You need to be below this number.
If you're, what we talked about was the McDonald's burger is below that number. If you're doing well and you're alive, you should be above that number. And the foods that you're eating, the things that you're drinking, should have an energy level above that number too. And unfortunately, I don't think there's a real great economical home resource to test that on an energy frequency level. But just know that the way that they're created from Earth, they're created to have a high energy level. So the more humans get involved in the process, the more the energy level goes down. We'll put it that way. So the more processing, the more chemicals, the more engineering and science, and etc. So one of the things, again, with nutrition, the thing that we talked about last month's meetup, by the way, I don't think we have any repeat attendees from,
Last
well, sorry, we did 2 last month. 2 weeks ago,
Oh.
we talked about having the proper intention for eating healthy.
Oh.
And why, if you're eating to avoid disease, you're more likely to get that disease
Oh.
versus if you're eating to be healthy. And so we talked about that a little bit and how food is the building blocks for being healthy. It provides the building blocks for all of our systems to function properly. And Jeff gave a great example. If you're driving your car, you know that there's a certain type of fuel that it requires, right?
Mhm.
So if you decide for one day that, you know what, I don't want to put gasoline in my car today, I want to put orange juice in my car and see how well it runs. We can all, I mean, we're all snickering and smiling because we know what the outcome would be, right? Probably not very good. Car's not going to run well on orange juice. But wait, I can sell you a converter that you can attach to your gas tank and it'll filter the orange juice and allow your car to run on it. But in exchange for using orange juice with the filter, you only get half of your mileage. So your fuel efficiency is reduced by 50%. Would any of you still choose to run it on orange juice? If you had to buy the converter and your car is only half as efficient?
No.
Okay.
And then your car's gonna die running.
And it's
Rusted.
probably still not
Rusted
going to last
out
as
after
long,
a while.
right? But that's what we do to our bodies. Because our bodies were made smart enough, made with enough innate intelligence that it can take, the example we talked about in the car earlier was we can eat spinach or we can eat pizza, and there's enough nutrition, I have a hard time calling it that, but there's enough nutrition in the pizza
Yay, I'm a pizza person.
that the body can take that pizza and through its miraculous systems
Yeah.
get some of the same things that it could have gotten or would have gotten from the spinach, but it takes a lot more work on the body's behalf to go through that whole digestion process of the pizza to garner those same nutrients that it could have gotten and assimilated very easily from the spinach. So it's kind of that same example as the gas tank in the car, where you can just put the gas in, which you know the body wants and needs, aka the spinach, or insert whatever name here that you know is healthy for you. Or we can continually put in junk foods, and then we wonder why the body's not functioning the way it should, or we do literally feel exhausted, or you know, we're having digestive issues, and we won't go into detail there, but those things come from making the body work harder than it needs to. So it's a process that one of the doctors that Jeff has been trained by, we both have, but more him, has termed biotransmutation. It's taking those foods that probably aren't designed for our optimal nutrition and taking those in on a regular basis and having the body having to convert those to what we really need. So one of the things that a lot of people say today, there's differences even in the health food world or the holistic nutritional world. There's differences of opinion on whether we can get all of the nutrition that we need just from food today, or whether we've depleted so many nutrients and everything from the soil that we can't even grow food that's good enough to get all of our nutrients. So then the next discussion that comes up is, well, we need to supplement our diets, not replace, because you can't get enough nutrition just from supplements that you can stop eating. But you can take supplements to enhance and supplement what we're missing in the food that we're eating. So a few things we want to look at as far as supplementations. One is greens. One of the reasons that I drink mine, I'm not a huge fan of eating them, so at least some of them, so I do what I can there and I supplement. So greens are probably one of the best things that you can supplement with. One of the other things that is vital is something called trace minerals. Company that I market for is their product is called Tracite. They've got a a great website where they actually go into kind of more of the details on why trace minerals, and they can carry, I think it's like 70 times their weight in, molecular weight in minerals to the body. So think of, what is it, an ant that can carry like a ridiculous amount of times its weight. And that's what trace minerals are for the body in nutrition. So trace minerals are a great thing to start with. And one of the things I think we were talking about this earlier in the week is that a lot of the supplements that you find out there in the store shelves, Walgreens and Walmart and places like that, is you see this huge rack, right? And you got, starting up here, vitamin A all the way through zinc down here, and every single thing in between.
Right.
And if you buy every single vitamin in an individual thing, you're going to be spending thousands of dollars a month for getting all your nutrition. So one of the things that is kind of ideal to look for is something that has a single product or a couple single products that have a lot of those things in them. Again, our company calls that an OptiBlend. Other terms from other companies, but the same concept, that you're taking kind of there's conventional products on the shelf such as Centrum that work under that concept, but they're using
Isolates.
Synthetic forms of vitamins. Apologize. Using synthetic vitamins versus what you want to look for is a whole food supplement. So you're getting that whole realm of vitamins, minerals, nutrients, enzymes, probiotics, etc., but it's coming from a food source rather than from a laboratory. So those are some things that you want to look at.
I add one point.
Absolutely.
As you're talking about this, we're talking about cancer tonight, but excuse me. We were talking about this earlier in the week when we were putting our notes together, that we didn't want to, even though we're talking about cancer, we don't want to start talking about all the vitamins that get rid of cancer, because what we talked about a couple weeks ago with the proper intention for eating is we don't want the mindset, I want this vitamin to get rid of cancer. That's incorrect. We need to be thinking about whole body balance, whole lifestyle balance. That's what Jeff and I talk about, is having the body in balance and having every part of our life in balance, which we're going to talk about that more later, about our life and how that impacts cancer. But what Jeff mentioned with greens and tracite and different things like that is we want to look at what foods, what nutrition can we give the body so the body can do its own thing. Not try to be smart and just give the body vitamin D because we know that's got a lot of research that says it's good for cancer. We're not going to have that discussion because that's really short-minded thinking, thinking inside the box.
Let God do what He's supposed to do with your body.
Exactly.
What
Give the body what it needs and let the body do what it knows to do. So,
Absolutely. Thank you. Yep. So, again, with any of these things, I mean, just talking about trace minerals or greens or supplementation in general, we could talk for a long time. So we're just going to kind of cover some surface level stuff tonight. Before we jump into talking about toxins, a couple other things we weren't real sure where to fit them in, so we're just going to hit them here real quick that kind of go along with taking care of your body, I guess, when you look at nutrition, are exercise and sleep. So exercise. There's a lot of misnomers out there as far as what you need to do for exercise, and we don't throw this disclaimer out here because we didn't talk about it right at the beginning, but we don't claim to be experts on anything. What we are great at is being students, and we've got some of the best teachers. So basically what we do in these meetings is simply regurgitate some of the things that we've been learning and have been applying and in the process of doing better at ourselves. So exercise, one of the things that doesn't have to be extended time period on a daily basis. It doesn't have to be running 15 miles and some of these things that sometimes we get led to believe. Doesn't have to be powerlifting and all those things all the time. But something that you do want to do is be able to get your heart rate up. Can probably be achieved in generally 30 minutes or potentially even less depending on what you're doing, and do that a few times a week. One of the...
A few times a week?
Yeah, 3-4 times a week.
Okay.
one of the best things you can do without having to schedule extra time for it or anything like that. When you're going to the grocery store, park in the back of the parking lot instead of trying to get the closest spot and just walk. Get more exercise. When you're in the mall, instead of taking the escalator, take the steps. Just things like that you know you wouldn't necessarily classify as quote unquote exercise, but they are things to get the body moving and working the way that we're supposed to. Another thing that I don't know if I can get away with saying it's emerging, but I'm hearing a lot more about it lately, is something called rebounding. If you've seen them, they're mini trampolines. They're probably about the width or circumference here of the table. But you can jump on these mini trampolines and you can kind of be creative with that. We were talking about that on the phone earlier this week. You can just stand and bounce on them like this. You don't even have to pick your toes up off the ground, just bounce your heels. Do that for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. You can get creative with it and do some running in place on it, or doing some twists as you're doing your jumping on it. But one of the things that the rebounding is particularly good at is actually getting the lymphatic system moving. Because one of the things, like if you think about the circulatory system, one of the ways that the blood, or the way that the blood moves through the veins and the arteries is because it's got the heart to pump it, right? The lymphatic system doesn't have a heart to pump it, so it needs things to help it move through the lymphatic system. Rebounding is probably the single best exercise to help with the lymphatic cells and getting those cleansed and purged, and just helping to get that moving the way that it should.
So if I know somebody that has cancer in that area, that might be a good thing to suggest. She's a nurse.
Rebounding is good, period.
Period.
So, yes, it certainly isn't going to hurt.
Right.
Would that be the same as running in place on the floor or something?
No,
No?
no, and I don't know all the science behind it,
Okay.
all the reasons behind it, but there's something about the
Spring.
the size of the trampoline, the way that the resistance is when you're jumping on it, even versus a bigger trampoline. Trampoline versus trampoline isn't even the same. The rebounder specifically has beneficial effects that you just can't quite get in other ways. So,
I have big ones.
yeah.
So that's good to know.
Yep. And the cool thing about that is kind of like a treadmill or something, even if you're a TV person or something, just set it out in front of the TV and jump on it while you're watching your favorite inspirational show in the morning. I almost said news. No. I don't know why that almost slipped out, but so rebounding is a great thing. And then just keep other parts of your body fit and the way that they should be. Do some resistance training, get the muscles strengthened up and toned. You don't have to become a bodybuilder or anything, but just keep all the body parts moving and functioning and growing and building the way that they should be. And then sleep, a couple points on that real quick, is one, everybody's different, and with all of this stuff, everybody's different. That's one of the reasons that we highly recommend having kind of a personal coach or something along those lines that you can work with that will help you figure out you and what works for you. No individual person's diet should be or is the same. Nobody's exercise regimen is necessarily the same, so you need to figure out what works for you. Sleeping is no different, but I think pretty much what most of the experts agree on is somewhere between 6 to 9 hours of sleep, and 6 to 9. And then the other thing is that you want to have it be as dark as possible when you're sleeping. So if you've got alarm clocks that are glowing and you got a night light that's on and you got your computer that has 14 different lights left on when you're monitoring your tower, and fish tanks and TV's going, that's not
Find an alarm clock that doesn't light up. Your phone.
yeah, well, yeah,
Anyway.
we'll talk about electromagnetics at the phone. Coming soon.
I don't know that.
No.
I remember that. I remember.
So as dark as possible, because one of the important things that happens or should happen when you're sleeping is the production of melatonin. and that happens best when it's as dark as possible. That's why it was designed for us to have the sun during the day and dark at night. There's funny, the more you learn about the science of all this, the easier it is to understand why things were created the way they were, why we were created the way we were. So that's kind of it for the nutritional sleep exercise section. The next thing we talked about is toxins. And again, we're not going to talk about all the things. We could spend hours, potentially days, talking about all of those, unfortunately. The overview with a few things of those you want to look out for is pesticides, artificial sweeteners. There's a very large link between aspartame and cancer. So all the people that are drinking diet pops, thinking that you're doing your body a favor, you're not. Not that you're doing your body a favor by drinking pop, period, but diet, actually, aspartame in particular is very not good for the body, so something to stay away from if you can. Fluoride, same scenario. There's a lot of studies linking fluoride to cancers. So if you think about what we brush our teeth with every day, usually fluoride containing toothpaste. And so one of the things pay attention to your local municipality too. If you get reports for your water supply, if you live in cities or whatever, fluorides, chlorine, lots of other potential toxins in your water. So yep, you want to get water filters and stuff like that. But one of the things on talking about toothpaste, on the personal care products side of things, I guess, one real quick and easy thing without getting into all of the toxins that you have to look for and everything, that's something that you need to educate yourself on, because it just takes some looking into. But one real quick and easy thing, if you're looking at your product and you're trying to figure out if it's not necessarily good for you, but if it's bad for you, one of the real quick ways to tell if it's bad for you is if you flip it over and look at the ingredients label and stuff on the back, and if it says anything on there about if too much is swallowed or too much is used, call Poison Control Center immediately. Think about that statement for a minute. And our parents, without even thinking about it, have given us, they've taught us to brush with fluoride toothpaste all our lives. And you flip it over and look on the back, that's exactly what it says. If more than is used for brushing gets swallowed, call Poison Control Center immediately. Okay, well, even if I don't swallow it, it's still in my mouth, it's getting absorbed into my gums and everything,
Right.
so the implications are there. I don't think I need to say more. So that's a real quick and easy way to tell for sure that it's not good for you. That's not a test all for toxins in your personal care products, but that's a good starting point. Don't buy stuff that admits that it's poisonous for you. So a couple of things with that. One is that's one of the ways that we've got detoxification organs in our body. The thyroid, the liver, the pancreas, the kidneys, that all of them play a part in detoxifying the body and filtering out things like that we shouldn't be putting in.
Thyroid and liver.
Yep, a few of them. So when we're taking in those things, we're on a daily, regular, annual, lifetime level, then that's one of the ways that we're putting our body into exhaustion, like we talked about at the beginning. It's because all those organs have to work harder than they should have to filter out all the stuff that we're putting in there that we shouldn't be. So we're putting in oftentimes more than they can keep up with filtering and getting out through our...
What's so bad with pizza? Is it the stuff under the crust? You got the tomatoes and you got the cheese. Well, cheese, dairy's not the best.
We could do a whole seminar on what's bad about pizza. So.
Okay.
From the hormones in the cheese, to the high fructose corn syrup in the sauce, to the growth hormones in the pepperoni. Oh yeah.
Tomatoes?
To the gluten
What they put
acidifying
in
crust, so that, yeah. any of the stuff that could be good on it, like the vegetables and stuff, if
Yeah.
you're not buying organic, are all probably pesticide and ridden, and yeah.
Unless you buy alligator.
So if you're gonna do pizza,
Think your own.
you can do pizza. That's the beautiful thing. And we've been talking about this a lot at home lately, and I've been talking to my wife about making, you know, some different changes in what we're buying at the grocery store and stuff. And it's hard because, right? Because we've been
Right.
conditioned, we've grown up with a
Right.
certain way of doing things, and so once you start to learn this stuff, it's like, oh, what do I do? And organics cost more, and you know, I mean, that's just reality. That's part of the discussion. And love it if we can get to the tipping point as far as this stuff and start to put the pressure back on the industry to reverse things. You know, when
Yeah.
a salad costs you 5 times as much as the burger that's killing you, you know, then
Right.
it's just backwards in my mind. But one of the things that has come up is, you know, you don't have to change what you eat necessarily. You don't have to stop eating pizza, but figure out a way to make it a healthier version of it. So you might figure out how to make your own crust from
Or find
organic alkalizing grains, or finding a pre-made crust at a health food store or something
Yeah.
that's, you know, doesn't have all the preservatives and stuff in it, and use organic tomatoes that you know, put in your own blender and make your own sauce out of, and these are just
Yeah.
relatively simple things that you can do to make a change. I mean, we were just talking a little bit ago about my wife. One of my downfalls, I love her, but she's constantly baking stuff, and my downfall is cookies, right? I love cookies, so I mean, she doesn't help that she makes the best ones on planet Earth as far as your taste buds are concerned, but she likes to make no-bake cookies too.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so she just made a batch of those last night, and I called her from work on my break, and she was talking about how she just made some no-bakes. Well, a couple weeks ago when I was up here last, I went to the health food store and bought a 1-pound bag of raw cacao powder, what all processed chocolate starts from. And so this is actually the way that it was intended by God, nature. Raw, unprocessed powder straight from the cacao bean. And she used that instead of the little plastic tin of store-bought cocoa powder that's processed and preservatized and chemicalized, and cookies turned out just the same. So it's like, okay, it's not necessarily doing anything, consuming anything different as far as the end product, but how you're making it and just making a healthier version of it. So I love burgers. Found out there's a restaurant up on West Main that serves organic veggie burgers and organic black bean burgers. Went there a couple weeks ago, that same day that I bought the cacao
Are those
powder.
any good?
Had a black bean
This
burger.
sounds awful.
It was good.
They are?
It was good.
What
I sell 'em,
restaurant?
Niskers up on West Main.
Oh, Niskers is on West Main?
Yep. Yep.
Where in
So-
West Main?
They are,
You know?
you know where Taco Bell is on the corner of West Main and Drake?
West Main and Drake. Yeah.
There's that little kind of
Oh,
L-shaped
yeah, yeah,
plaza
yeah,
behind
yeah.
that.
Okay, you
They're
can go on.
they're in that plaza.
Thank you.
Yep. Next to the UPS store.
Okay.
Oh,
So.
next to the Chinese restaurant,
Yeah, there's a
one
restaurant.
under that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think I do remember
Yeah.
seeing an Oriental restaurant there. I was pretty focused when I went, so not real sure what else is in the plaza. But
Did you run anybody over or anything?
but just those types of things, you know, making some small changes, and necessarily eating completely different, going vegetarian or anything like that, but just making some different changes in how we make the products that we're consuming or whatever. So I don't recall exactly how we got there from toxins, but that's all right. So a couple of things with toxins. One of the things you need to do is do more research and stuff on your own. To aid in that, if you're part of our meetup group, first of all, if you're not, we've got a laptop that we'll have up afterwards to allow you to sign up for that so you can be on it. But if you are, when you are, we've posted previous paper packets that we've handed out at prior meetups. We've made PDFs of those and posted those to the site. So one of those that we did post was the one for the toxins meetup that we did. So we've got some of the specifics to look out for. Excuse me, there. So saying that, we all have consumed toxins up to this point through our food. We've taken them in. One of the big epiphanies, if you will, for me was when I heard the statement at one point that if you wouldn't eat or drink something, you shouldn't put it on your skin either. Because your skin is the largest organ in your body, so it's still getting into your body, still getting into your system, into your bloodstream. So I've changed a lot of personal care type products that I used to use. Into the garbage can you went, and now my body wash, for example, is made up of about 6 or 7 different organic oils that are mixed together and made into a liquid soap. And so like coconut oil, jojoba oil, orange, lime, lemon oil, so these types of things. Toothpaste is pretty simple, and actually I'm probably going to be trying to make a batch of my own relatively soon from a recipe that I found, but just simple things like that.
With what?
For the toothpaste,
Baking Yeah.
Soda?
baking soda, coconut oil, stevia, or xylitol to sweeten it, and so whatever kind of essential oil you'd like to put in, however you want to flavor it,
Clove
basically,
oil, maybe?
peppermint oil
Like
or
mint
something,
Clove oil.
clove or citrus. My wife and I are both kind of the same. There, if we're going to use toothpaste, we want it to be kind of a mint flavor, so we'll probably go peppermint with ours, but that's one of the beauties of it. If you're making it yourself, you can experiment, make what you want.
Yeah.
So, with that said, though, we've all taken in toxins. Just point blank. If you've gone swimming in a lake, you've taken in lake water that has stuff in it that you shouldn't have in your body. So, at this point, I'm going to pass the reins over to Jeff. He's going to talk for a little while about how to get toxins out of the body, and then start to talk more about the last couple of things, the electromagnetics and then the mental and emotional stress. So, with that, Mr. Camp.
Thank you, sir. So, as Jeff has done a very good job of doing and establishing, is that we have toxins in our body. So what do we do about it? Well, as I mentioned a little while ago, everything that we try to talk about is the whole lifestyle, the whole body balance. So we want to do things that establish that balance, and not just do temporary fixes, but live a life that supports health and abundance and prosperity and etc. So ideally, your diet is going to shift to that which is going to naturally be getting out the toxins. So Jeff talked about earlier how fruits and vegetables alkalize the body. Well, fruits and vegetables also help get toxins out of the body. So if we're shifting our diet, not just for a temporary fix or for a specific reason like defeating cancer so we don't get cancer, but so that we're living a life of balance and health, the toxins are naturally going to be getting out. And if we're increasing our knowledge on what toxins are out there, and we're reducing the amount that's going in, and we're changing our diet to get what's in there out, we're going to start getting to higher levels of health. If you want to accelerate the process, which a lot of the things that we have learned and apply in our own life, we have learned kind of the long way to do it, and then we learn the shortcut ways. So this is a good example of that, is toxins. You can change your lifestyle, you can change your diet, that's kind of the long way. If you want to speed up the process and cut weeks, months, or years off the time, you can do other cleanses. So there's certain cleanses that you can do to clean out different organs and systems of the body. We're not going to go into all those, there's a lot. But think of all the organs and everything that you could possibly clean out. There's herbal formulations, there's homeopathic formulations that can cleanse that stuff out. So if you are wanting to live a life of not getting cancer, or you already have cancer and would like to increase your body's ability to heal from that, getting toxins out and doing an acceleration type program to do that would be an ideal scenario. So if you want to know more about specifics and what products to buy, and I know Jeff's going to talk a little bit later about probably a couple of those, maybe of the different cleanses that he offers, and so there's a lot of knowledge that we don't have time to go into every little bit here. But, Jeff referenced the meetup site where we posted a lot of data on that from, I think, last summer when we did some meetups on toxins and what cleanses to do and, the different organs and the order you should do them in. And there's a lot of data out there that either him and I can give you or you can check the meetup site. So we'd love to be able to talk about that here, but we'd have to bring sleeping bags and pillows, and we don't want to do that. So, so Jeff's done a good job of establishing the first couple issues that cause the body to be in an exhaustion. So we have nutritional deficiencies or exercise deficiencies, sleep deficiencies, if you will, that can create exhaustion. If we're not giving the body what it needs to do its normal functions, then we're going to create an exhaustion state. If we're putting in a lot of toxins through the food we eat, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the personal care products that we put on our skin, etc., that's going to cause exhaustion. So a third one that we've already kind of hinted at a little bit, and it's kind of a hidden thing because you can't see it. And there's not a lot of research out there, quite honestly, because the industry that has the money is not going to want to prove itself harmful. And that industry being the telecommunications industry primarily. So we talk about cell phones, we talk about iPads, we talk about laptop computers, we talk about wireless connections, satellite, radar, etc., etc., etc. All operate in frequencies. So you think of a radio. You turn on the radio and you want the classical station. It's a specific frequency. And those frequencies are radio waves. They're physical particles. We can't see them with our eyes. We don't have the ability to pick those up, but they're there. And in the last 50 years, we went from hardly any radio waves in the space that we live in, between the ground and I think it's the stratosphere. There was no radio waves there besides what is supposed to be there naturally, to creating cell phone towers, Wi-Fi, radar, satellites, and we're bouncing all these frequencies from the ground to the stratosphere in the environment that we live. So what's the problem with that? Well, the body operates in frequency ranges, the nervous system. When it fires to let you know you put your hand on the stove, or when you think a thought and have an emotion, there's things that go on in the brain that operate in certain frequencies to tell the nervous system what to do. And they operate in frequencies, the same frequency ranges that all the man-made devices operate in. So the problem with that is the cells of the body don't know, is it the brain telling me to do something, or is it some outside technological frequency that's telling me what to do? And the body gets confused because there's a couple different types of frequencies. There's the man-made ones and then there's the natural ones. And the body can get confused. And when the body gets confused, it shuts down the cell walls. So what that means is it doesn't let the toxins from inside the cell out to cleanse out, and it doesn't let the nutrition that you ate in your diet into the cell to function properly. It shuts down. Exhaustion, that's what we said is the root cause of all disease, is exhaustion. So we're talking about a lot of this stuff tonight because we want to shed light on what things we're doing just every day that we don't think about that's putting our body into a state of an exhaustion where cancer can thrive. Because cancer thrives when it's exhausted. Because Jeff talked about Otto Warburg back in 1932 that he discovered that cancer can't live where it's acidic. And when it's acidic, that means that the body is exhausted. So being around wireless devices and having your cell phone on you all day long in your pocket, or even worse, like for men, having it in the pocket by your heart, horrible. Absolutely horrible. We don't want to do those things. So we want to be able to reduce it because we're never going to escape it. Unless you have some spaceship that you can just say, let's load up the family and go to Mars, you're stuck. You're going to have it. So what do we do to reduce our exposure to it and make the best of it? That's all. The only options we've got. So a couple things you may not be aware of is there's a lot of research that's come out on cell phones that obviously have, a lot of them have an antenna, at least used to have one that actually physically came out. Now they're just embedded into the phone. There is no antenna anymore. Or the Bluetooth headsets that we put in our ear. There's a lot of documentation in the literature, medical literature, that says there's actually been documented x-rays of tumors in the shapes of the antennas or in the shape of the Bluetooth that you put in your ear.
Really?
Because of the radiation coming off that device. That's shutting down those cells in that area, causing probably genetic mutations, and we don't even know all the damage because there's not enough research out there for it. Because again, like I said, the industry that has all the money to potentially put into to the research is the very industry that is producing it. So they're not going to, and they started to do the research and they go, oh man, we don't want to go there. We're not going to do any more funding. So the only funding that's there is like if Jeff and I tried to start up a nonprofit to research it. So there's minimal funding there because it costs probably millions and millions of dollars to really look into this, to know how it affects the body. So we just know a tiny little bit and we know it's horrible. But we know that there's those documented cases of tumors growing in the shapes of antennas and Bluetooth. So what can we do about that? There's nothing we can do to turn off satellites and radar, and we're not going to eliminate it. It's only going to keep increasing. So we have to do things to either reduce our exposure and or do things to our bodies to help protect us. And there's a few options that we have, and Jeff's getting prepped to show them. A big thing that we can do in regards to our cell phones is when we're talking on them, have them in speaker mode, where you're not putting it to your head. Obviously, there's times where you're not going to be able to do that. But ideally, if you're driving in your car, have it away from you. Because the closer it is to your head, the more damage you're going to be doing to your body. That's just common sense. And a lot of cell phones in the books, actually, the manual that you get with your cell phone, it'll talk about you need to actually have that cell phone at least an inch away from your ear. Don't ever put it right to your ear. If we read the manual, none of us read the manual. I never read the manual.
Yeah.
Who reads manuals?
Who needs direction?
Right.
So that's something that is encouraged. Even in the manuals, they're telling you don't put that ever up against your skin, but most of us just
Yeah.
ram it up there.
Like this.
Right, it's pushing on there. Yep. So that's one way. Other ways are just turning off, like when you sleep. Jeff was talking about sleep. And another kind of element with sleep, we didn't put it in that part, but is you don't want to be sleeping with your wireless internet on anywhere in your house. Turn it off, because those frequencies are going through the air, and the biggest problem with the electromagnetics from cell phones and wireless devices, they affect you all day long, but the biggest time is during sleep, because your body's going through so much extra processes while it's sleeping. You don't want that process hindered in any form or fashion. So to be able to turn those Wi-Fi devices off, don't sleep with your cell phone near you, ideally shut that off when
What
you're
if
having
it's
a
in
room.
another room and I'm charging the battery?
Yeah, if the cell phone's in another room, like a room or two away, that's pretty good, but ideally just don't have it in your, I know a lot of people that they sleep here and they have their cell phone on their nightstand because that's their alarm and
Yeah.
everything.
Under pillow.
And their what?
Under pillow.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Right here.
We won't go there.
Here,
Or if you fell asleep with it on your lap. Or if you fell asleep talking to somebody on the
It's got your
phone.
alarm on it. You gotta hold
They were
on to it so
boring.
when you go
Yeah,
up, you
sorry
hit
about
it
Being
fast.
a hat.
I'm going to have to get treatment on that later.
Education, we love it.
So those are a few strategies that you can do. There's a lot more that we can educate you on if you want to know how more to reduce. There's products that you can buy that you can put on your cell phone that help reduce. There's a little dot there that Jeff's pointing to that help reduce the frequencies that come off the phone. They're not going to completely rid it. You can also wear something on you that Jeff's showing. It's called an e-pendant. That helps. We all have a field around us. If you think of a magnet, when you get two magnets together and you can feel the field and they're either going to attract or they're going to repel. Well, our bodies have a field around us too that's invisible. And what Jeff just showed you, that little crystal or stone, helps enhance our field and protect us from the frequencies that are coming in. That's a couple strategies there. There's a lot more that we could talk about. I guess I'll mention one more. I forgot about this. Is something I was just made aware of here this summer. It's something called grounding, and something none of us hardly ever do anymore is walk barefoot on the soil.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
And by doing that, you're connecting your energetic, your electromagnetic being to the